Change of control clause in a contract tells you what happens when one of the parties to the contract changes control, like when its ownership or management changes. And it's a super critical clause in the context of a deal where one of the parties is changing control, like a company sale, a merger, an acquisition, really important. Otherwise, it's just something that kind of like sits dormant. People who are sort of more sophisticated around contracts are actually pretty careful about it when they draft contracts, because they know that at some point in time in the future, companies tend to change hands, and it can be really good to make sure that you can do so smoothly. So people who are careful about contracts generally tend to actually care a lot about how change of control clauses are drafted, even though they're like very much in the boilerplate. But where change of control clauses come up most often is around a change of control. Like you're trying to buy a company, you're trying to sell your company, and if you're doing either of those things, you need to know what your change of control clauses say. Essentially, if you're trying to find that information, you got sort of a few choices. One is you read all the contracts and try to find what they say about change of control. The other one is you use a contract analysis AI to find the information automatically for you. One thing about reviewing for change of control clauses is it's not as simple as doing like a control F on change of control, right? Because like in a simple example, it could be change in control, change of control. There could be a lot of use of change in the document, but also change of control clauses sometimes don't even use the word change of control. So for example, they might say something like any assignment, comma, direct or indirect. And an indirect assignment is a change of control can be an indirect assignment. Similarly, they could say like any assignment under the 1940 Act or some other piece of legislation that defines assignment as a change of control could also be a change of control. Or it might say something like any merger, consolidation, or otherwise. Like there's lots of different ways to say a change of control clause, or to say change of control that don't use the words change of control. And in fact, it's something that experienced reviewers get tripped up on. Not only are the words that can be used to express a change of control potentially different, but the places can be different too. So sometimes a change of control clause will exist sort of towards the end of a contract, in an assignment section, in a change of control section. But I've seen them in weird places too. I've seen a change of control in a notice section saying like notice must be given in these situations. And one of the situations was a change of control. More problematically, I've seen one floating around, or they're not that uncommon to be sitting around in a source code escrow provision. So that's a provision that forces one party to leave their source code with a sort of neutral third party, and then it sets out the release conditions under the source code escrow. And I've seen change of control be a source code escrow release provision. And that's like not something you feel like figuring out after you've done the deal. So all in all, if you are doing a change of control transaction, you need to find change of control clauses, and having people do it, especially sort of less experienced people, can be pretty dangerous. A lot of sort of heavy majority of the world's best law firms use contract analysis artificial intelligence to help them with this work, and they do it for good reason. It can make them as accurate, even more accurate at this work, and also helps increase speed significantly. Like they can do this work in 20 to 90% less time. Finding change of control clauses in contracts can be a lot of work. Like you really have to read through the contracts, and you can't count that they're going to be findable by a control F. You can't count that they're going to be in a section titled change of control. You really need to read through the contracts page by page, or even better, use a contract analysis AI. One bit of good news, if you do need to find change of control clauses, is that if you click the link right here, there's a widget where you can just upload your contracts and it'll automatically find change of control clauses for you. And that can be a big help.